start going. And perfect. Hello all. Thank you for joining us today on this very special edition of Second Acts, brought to you by Kendal At Home on it. My name is Ryan Anderson. I am the outreach manager here at Kendal At Home. With me from the Kendal At Home side is Sue Woykin. She is the marketing and events coordinator with us. And she'll be handling behind the scenes stuff for us today. If any monitoring the chat, the Q&A for any questions that might come up throughout the seminar here. If there's any technical issues, anything of that nature, feel free to shoot her a brief message on that. A few housekeeping items before I introduce our special guest here. We have, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop those into the Q&A or chat down below. We'll be addressing those questions throughout the programming. If there's anything there, we might even bring you back into the webinar if you would like to ask a question live too. So feel free to raise your hand or shoot Sue a message if you would like to do so there. If you want to change how the program is being viewed, feel free to do so. Up in the top right hand corner, you can change the view and the setting right there. And then as well as we do have a live transcript going, so you can change the settings for that down below, down in the little closed caption bomb there on the bottom of the screen. Change the size, turn it off, whatever you want to do there. So without further ado, I want to introduce Polly Kornblith, who is a member of Kendal At Home, and her husband behind the camera, Mike. Hi, Mike. They run Horse SenseAbility. So they started this a couple years ago, kind of combining passions of theirs and working with at-risk youth and animals. And as you can see, Polly was grateful enough to bring along 2 extra friends as well. So Polly, do you mind introducing yourself, talking a little bit about yourself, and introducing your 2 friends there as well?
I'll start with introducing them because they're the stars of the show. This is Hugo. He's a small Shetland pony.
Polly, do you mind speaking up just a little bit?
Is this any better?
Yep, a lot better.
So this is Hugo. He's a Shetland pony. He and I are specially trained as a therapy team. He has a lot of many special talents, including the fact that he's house trained. He can walk up and down stairs, and he has gone on elevators. So we can do visits to various places. And this is his buddy, Willie Nelson, who is a Nubian goat. And the 2 of them live together, and they're only 2 of our 35 animals here. But they're very friendly, as you'll see.
I can see that too, especially he's coming right up to the camera on it there.
Well, during the pandemic, they got a lot of practice with Zoom, and so they naturally gravitate to any electronic device that might be filming them.
I can only imagine. Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about what kind of inspired Horse SenseAbility in working with animals and at-risk youth?
So my background's in education, but I never did anything like this. Now, I used to design web-based training and had gotten to the point where I wanted to do something different and supposedly retire. This is my retirement, although I think I'm working more hours a week than I've ever worked before. Mm-hmm. And I was personally have had a lot of comfort in spending time with animals, and had taken some of my horses and dogs to a school for very troubled and macho high school boys, and seeing the effect with them that some of these young men who would act super tough when the dog came in, they just lie down on the ground in the classroom and stroke the dog and look very happy. And I realized it could be life-changing, particularly for boys, because they don't tend to express as much in terms of physical touch. And I've always been an animal person and started riding again in my late 40s. So having had the experience of taking my dogs for therapeutic work, I decided it would be interesting to combine working with the horses and working with these type of kids. We work with a wide variety of kids. But one of the things about horses that's very different from dogs, for example, is that horses are prey animals. So they're more like a deer or a rabbit than they are like a dog. They're very highly aware of their environment. Anything that is, they're always worried that things might happen to them. And a lot of that is very similar to, say, veterans with PTSD. We work a lot with kids who essentially have PTSD. They've experienced trauma, neglect, abuse, or have other mental health issues, as well as young people who have physical disabilities.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the emotional support dogs, because I know what you mean on that. Like as a guy, like you're kind of walled off. It's tough to show emotion and things like that, and I'm not used to doing it. But when you see a dog, you just melt. You just see things and you just melt on it. So I can see how that kind of works in there too with the horses. And veterans and stuff like that. I used to do some work with veterans, and we brought in to my high school on it a emotional support dogs, and we got to show off. Okay, what is it that they do? What is it that they? How do you train them? What is it that they do? How do they actually support veterans on that? And we had a veteran talking about that too. So it's amazing seeing the work that they can do to really bring down those anxiety levels and put people more in tune with nature and calmness there. So you're talking about dogs, you're talking about horses. I'm curious, where does the goat come into play then?
Well, my head is cut off. The goat is mostly a companion for Hugo, but actually he's become extremely popular here. The two of them are pretty tightly connected. And a lot of times kids, particularly those who may be a little wary of the bigger animals we have, will be more comfortable starting out with Hugo and Willie and learn how, for example, to lead a horse by taking a walk with Willie and Hugo. We really start wherever the child is. We have a therapy bunny here. We have a flock of chickens, and as well as a total of 11 horses. So if a child comes here and doesn't resonate with the horses or is intimidated by the horses, we might start with the bunny. It really doesn't matter as long as you're getting a benefit from being here. Obviously, our focus is horses, but like you said, people can allow themselves to drape themselves all over an animal and hug them and all of those things. And for children, for example, who have autism, may not be able to look a person in the eye or communicate easily or feel comfortable with a person. They may feel very comfortable with an animal. And we have had one child who was about 3 or 4 who visited with Hugo at school. And when his aide was leading him away, he said, "Horse." And I thought, oh, 3-year-old saying horse. But the teachers were like, "Oh my God," because he had never spoken a word at school before. He was basically nonverbal. You never know.
So he really, truly, where he wasn't really connecting maybe with his classmates or his teacher or any of the peers there, he really connected with the animal on that show, just in being able to say one word.
Yes. Yeah. And I've heard about things like that, but it was the first time I actually witnessed it.
So you've talked about the bunch of different animals you have on the farm, from flocks of chicken to goats to horses on it. And you've talked about the kids too. So can you talk about what it's like for what the size ranges and animals that you have are, as well as the ages that of kids that you work with, and what they might be going through?
We pretty much work with age 2 to mid-20s, although we have a couple of outliers. We have some who I think is 41. Um, we have a bunch of different types of programs. The most popular is the therapeutic riding and working with the horses unmounted, which is called therapeutic horsemanship. We also have a physical therapist who comes and sees clients. She's the one who's seen children as young as 2. We have an program for kids who have been in foster care. If you want to talk about young people with PTSD, they're the ones. And they range from age 6 to about 13. We vocational program for young adults with autism who are transitioning from school to the workplace, and they come here and learn job skills, including social skills that are needed when you're working. We offer a camp in the summer called City to Saddle for 6 to 13-year-olds. Only children from low-income families can come, and we do not charge for the camp. And next week, we're starting a new program called Horsetails, which is integrating reading and riding, and have children going into 4th and 5th grade will be our first victims. And we'll see how it goes.
I like how you kind of said that too. First victims on it. It's just like the test subjects on it. See how it works. Does it work? What can we do to change things going forward? I believe you talked to me a little bit about this Horsetails program that you're kind of bringing up. Can you talk about what kind of the plan is and how to do that?
Well, it will, from the kids' point of view, hopefully it'll just feel like camp. But kids will get to ride every day. They'll get to work with the horses every day. They'll be introduced to stories about famous or unusually talented horses. We'll be weaving vocabulary into all 3 of those areas based on what they're doing that day. And it's really designed for kids who lack confidence about reading, or just aren't that interested. So we're not going to change their reading level in 1 week, but we're hoping by the end of the week, they'll leave more excited about reading, and they'll also leave with a bag of books that they can take home. So in the hopes that they will actually read them.
So much like how the one kid who had trouble connecting with his peers at school on this, by putting them around horses and using the horsemanship as a way to try to encourage the reading and the learning. The hope is to encourage it that way.
And the kids can read aloud to Hugo and our other bigger horses that I'm going to show you in a minute. So, some of it, as you would say, is the carrot and stick approach, where the horses are what get the kids really excited, but we are subtly integrating into it literacy skills.
Very cool. And because that actually leads into, someone had posed the question as we were talking, is the therapy specifically for mental health, which it sounds like they're mainly, but branches off into other things. And then they also asked about hippotherapy, which can you go into that a little bit?
So hippotherapy is when a physical therapist, occupational therapist, or speech and language therapist work with the child and horses at the same time. And our physical therapist does this. So she works with young children who have mobility issues, balance issues, may not have much core strength, And while she'll do a regular assessment and some of the regular exercises of physical therapy, then the horse will get on the child will get on the horse, and she'll do exercises while the child rides the horse around in the ring. And again, the horse's movement mimics a person's walking. So we have participants who are not very ambulatory. And by the way, this also works on older people, just not our focus.
Mhm.
So that's one group. We focus a lot on mental health just because most therapeutic riding programs focus mostly on people with physical disabilities. We're not licensed mental health professionals. We don't have anyone here that qualifies for that. So it's not the same as, say, talk therapy, but we do have a lot of kids who have been through a lot of talk therapy who come here because the talk therapy is just not working or they're not willing to go. So it's different, but it's therapeutic. It's not therapy per se.
Very cool. And so, and I know too, we a lot of us want to see a tour of the farm. I know you were eager to do that as well. But one last question that I have too, as you're saying there, as it's coming up, you mentioned earlier that you had that education background. You have a master's in education, and you haven't really touched on that. How does that kind of line up? Is it just working with youth where the education kind of falls into play, or how do you utilize that nowadays with the Horse SenseAbility?
Well, I mean, I see everything I do as being about education, not just horses. And I develop and design and implement the different programs. We have 7 programs. So the ideas of what we should do and how we should do it is really more being an educator than just a horse person. So I classify us as an educational organization, and it is a priority to me to try to do things like integrating reading in, because I think kids need that help, particularly after the last few years. So if we do our little bit for that, we're glad to do it. So would you like to see some of the bigger animals?
Absolutely. If you're willing to show us, we'd love it. And for anyone viewing on, please feel free to pop any questions in the Q&A or chat as we're walking through. I'd be more than happy to answer them or bring you in. Just raise up your hand and Sue and I will bring you in. But yeah, Polly, please feel free to start to show us around.
We'll see how it goes. My husband's holding the iPad. I'm going to bring Hugo with us. And we're going to walk over and see some of the bigger horses. It's very hot. It's 90 degrees today. So most of our horses, we don't shut our horses in, but so they can go outside or stay in their stall if they want. And I think most of them probably are going to be in their stall because of the heat.
Dog. Goat. Let me grab the goat.
Hold on. It's a goat alert.
Good saying, don't leave me behind. Want to go?
All right, so the first horse we're going to say hi. You can see the goat wants to be with us too. This is Diesel. This thing on his face is called a fly mask. Flies go for their ears and their face, and they don't have any way to just scratch. So this helps keep them from being bothered so much. And Diesel is, you want me to take the goat out? Is he too distracting?
Well, as we walk.
Good on it.
see if he gets quiet. Anyway, Diesel is our biggest horse in terms of stockiest horse. And we put our bigger, heavier riders on him. And he's the kind of horse called a gypsy drum. Billy. I think.
Just let her out.
I gotta say, it was interesting seeing Willie jump on those and really get up there on it. So someone asked a question. So how tall is Diesel?
So we measure horses in hands. A hand is 4 inches like this, and it goes to their shoulder. Diesel is 15 hands, 3 inches. So almost 16 times 4 at the shoulder.
Okay.
This is Ruby. Ruby likes to wiggle her nose. For those who remember Bewitched, that's kind of her specialty. She's our smallest riding horse. She's about 12 inches shorter than Diesel. And she is a kind of horse called a gypsy cob. And we have 3 gypsy cobs. They're particularly great with kids. They're kind of like Labrador retrievers. They're very smart, they're very social, and they love to eat.
So I was going to ask that certain types of horses, are they used for certain different age groups? Are they used for different kids based on need? How do you kind of work through that?
Well, I mean, it takes a very special horse to do this kind of work. Often people don't really get that. They think, oh, anybody could do it, but they have to be very tolerant and unspookable. So if they startle, nothing bad will happen. So we have several breeds of horses that tend to have the right temperament. And not all of them started out that way. We do have a former racehorse here. We don't put kids on her, but she loves the attention. This is Pippin. Pippin is our youngest horse. We have had him since the moment of birth, and he is now 8 years old and a very active member of our program. And I'm going to show you his mother. Go see his
Maybe.
Very cool.
This is Glory. She's Pippin's mother. She's actually a pony because a pony is any horse pretty much below a certain height. And Pippin has now grown taller than her, as many boys do. And he is a horse, but she is a pony. And we have someone here having a lesson. He's going to be brushing the horse, and that is Charlie, and his instructor is Cindy.
Hi guys.
Hello.
So he's going to do some brushing, depending. He may ride today, but it is quite hot right now.
Cindy,
Polly, what's the upkeep with all these horses? So we're seeing the brushing, we're seeing stuff like that. What goes into taking care of horses?
A lot. So first of all, as every 2-year-old who comes here notices, horses poop, and they poop a lot. So the average horse poops like 8 times a day. And when you have 11 horses, you can do the math. That's a lot to clean up every day. Our horses get fed 4 times a day. In the morning, they have grain and hay. At lunch, they have hay. In the afternoon, they have grain and hay. And then they have nighttime snack, which is just hay. So just spending the time doing all the feedings and mixing up their grain takes a lot of time before you even get to brushing or getting them ready, saddled up and ready to ride. So it's a lot of work and not something that usually a 65 and 67-year-old should start doing in retirement, but it does keep us active.
So can you talk to me a little bit about that too? Being 65, 67, like, so obviously you're trying to stay active and everything there, and that's what we like to highlight in the Kendal At Home second act series is people who are active doing continue to follow their passions on that. So what has enabled you to continue to be able to do this work? What has enabled you to stay active and everything there, and motivating you and allowing you to keep doing it?
There have been moments. It is tiring. There are aches and pains. We do hire some help with it, but it is the reason you have to get up every morning. And we have to walk up to the barn and we have to take care of them, which means we have to move around. And so rather than having a strenuous exercise routine, we spend a lot of our time up here doing barn work, barn chores. And that keeps us busy. I do want to show you one other part of our barn too.
As you're walking there, someone had asked, and you mentioned it too, in saddling up your horses. Western saddles, English saddles, bareback, and can you explain what the difference is for people who might not know?
So there's Western saddles, like you see in Westerns, movies, and then there are English saddles, which you see. I can show you the English saddle. We do also have the bareback pad, so we can essentially provide the rider with some traction, but they don't have the support of a saddle. And frankly, I think for a lot of people, that's the best way to learn how to ride, because you're really moving with the horse. One of the things that's different about horses than working with dogs is if you're riding them, you're literally physically connected. And Hugo also plays soccer. That's what he's doing right now. He does. So with horses, it's trust. Trust goes both ways. Because the horses are prey animals, they need to learn to trust you and feel comfortable that you're going to keep them safe, because actually humans are their biggest predator. And of course, you want to feel that you can trust the horse to keep you safe. So that physical connection and kind of counterdependency is a very important part of the relationship. Hence, working, for example, with the kids who have been in foster care, connecting with the horse and developing a relationship and learning to trust the horse is a first step toward being able to trust people again, because they've been betrayed by people in their lives. You can keep asking. I'm going to walk you to our indoor space.
Sounds good. So yeah, so you mentioned with Hugo on the soccer. So what kind of activities do you have the horses doing on different things?
We get into the indoor. Oh, right now, actually, Charlie is giving Lori a bath. That's an activity that we do other than riding.
So how often do the horses get bathed?
Well, right now, with the prediction of 100 degrees tomorrow, it's right now the bathing is really to keep them cool. We
Okay.
don't shampoo them all that often, maybe once a month, but they get hot and sweaty just like we do.
Mhm.
So when they get sweaty, we, shower them, hose them off.
Mhm.
This is our tack room, and these are our English saddles. We don't have any Western saddles.
Mhm. So what is the difference? Because I'm vaguely familiar with the difference between the two. What is it? Different structures? Is it support?
It's shaped differently. It has a horn here that you can grab onto. It
Okay.
has different kind, these are called stirrups.
Mhm.
They're different kind of stirrup. Frankly, most people think Western saddles are more comfortable. I personally don't, but it's often also different kind of riding, like barrel racing. You would always do in a Western saddle.
Okay.
Working animals.
Rodeos, you would do in a Western saddle. Whereas show jumping, you would use an English saddle. So it's more the discipline, the riding discipline, but the saddles are also shaped to allow the type of movement necessary.
So when you're watching like the Derby, you're seeing more of a Western saddle, but if you're turning on to the Olympics, it might be more of an English.
Okay, in the Olympics, you're only going to see an English saddle.
Okay.
Kentucky Derby is a racing saddle. It's a very small, very light version of an English saddle.
Okay.
Each of our horses has a locker with their stuff in it in this room. But this room is also where families can watch the kids riding. And I'm gonna turn the camera so you can see our riding ring.
Oh, wow.
So just walking around that gives us some exercise too.
Can only imagine. So absolutely. And so I see Melissa Neiman has joined us on the live cast, which again, if any viewers want to hop on, feel free to raise your hand and or message Sue and she'll promote you in. Melissa, you had some questions earlier. I know that. I almost question if you have some history in horseback riding, horsemanship, which for those of you who don't know, Melissa is a care coordinator here at Kendal At Home in the Northern Ohio region. Melissa, do you have any other questions that you want to ask Polly?
Oh, well, so I had horses growing up and I was wondering, first of all, Pippin was the mom, was she a paint?
Lori's the mom, Pippin's the baby. They
Okay.
are gypsy cobs.
Okay.
Paint is strangely enough a breed of horse.
Right. Yeah.
Not paints because they're gypsy cobs, but
Okay.
they are pintos, which
Yeah.
is, so they're pinto gypsy cobs, and Pippin is registered as both the gypsy cob and as a pinto.
My mom had a pinto that was a circus horse before she had it. And whenever she rode, she couldn't let her put her head down because she would roll. So when she was a kid, she had to keep the horse's head up all the time.
Right before we joined the call, Mr. Hugo decided he wanted to roll. But I think a good circus horse.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you guys give horseback riding lessons there also in the corral or?
We don't give just regular recreational lessons unless there's a child who's a sibling of someone who needs to come here for the therapeutic work.
Okay.
Because there's so much need and
Yeah.
demand for the therapeutic work that's our priority.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, occasionally we also have, it's not always kids, occasionally we'll have an adult who had a bad experience or whatever with horses as a child, who come here to work on their own anxiety.
Mhm.
That kind of crosses the boundaries. I mean, a lot of our riders are perfectly able-bodied, but
Right.
it's anxiety, depression, those kinds of things. So
I th-
it might be hard to see the difference with some of our riders between
Mhm.
riding and therapeutic riding.
And I think that goes along with the trust that you mentioned, when you learn to trust the horse and you build a trust, between in the relationship, that does a lot for your mental stability. I would think it teaches you how to trust people, hopefully. I think it kind of would go hand in hand a bit. So yeah, it's really
Polly,
cool.
can you talk a little bit about that? In trusting the animals, trusting the people on it. You mentioned that humans are kind of the largest predator for horses on it. So how can you work with the animals to get them to trust you? And then can you talk a little bit about what it was like transitioning during the pandemic? You mentioned that they're kind of animals are now familiar with the Zoom and the technology. Can you talk about what that transition was like?
That part wasn't that hard. We didn't, our horses tend to be very curious. So if you walk into their paddock with a computer or a phone or an iPad, they're like, what is this? What is this? I want to see what it is. All over. So we just followed their lead. We did during the pandemic, we did a lot of virtual visits, and we did keep our mentoring program going, albeit virtually as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the fundamental issue of building trust with the horses is, honoring their need for their personal space, not overwhelming them, not like rushing up and saying, oh, nice horsey, being very calm and deliberate. You bring your own energy level down, it'll bring their anxiety level down. And that's something that a lot of the kids who come here have trouble controlling their behavior.
Mhm.
But when they're here, self-regulating is usually very improved. We've never had a child, be out of control here. And some of it might be instinct that maybe you don't want to upset this 1,000-pound animal that's only 1 foot away. But I think the kids really respect the horses, partly because of their size.
Mhm.
And also know that the horses just accept them for who they are. The horses don't care how smart they are, how well dressed they are, how well spoken they are, how nice their hair is styled, that it doesn't matter to the horses, and the kids get that. So for kids who have been either outcasts or isolated because of their differences, a lot of them will come here and feel really at home.
It must be very life-changing for some of the kids, where maybe in in society, in the community, where other people might not give them as much attention, not treat them well, whereas you come here and the horses are there to work with them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly. And the kids who have been in foster care, that program, we match a mentor, a volunteer that we train to be a mentor, one of our horses with one of the children, and the 3 of them meet weekly for an hour for the entire school year. So of course, that's also very much focused on building relationships.
So you talked about too, like other volunteers working with you. How many members of the team do you guys have working with the kids and everything and the horses? And what's that about? What's that like?
Well, we have a couple of instructors who work here.
I'm trying to get this to sit still, so my arm's getting very sore. There we go.
So we have a couple of instructors who come and teach here. We typically have a full-time barn manager to help with the horse care. And then we have a cadre of volunteers aged from their 20s to their 70s who come and help with the kids. If they're horse people, they can come and lead the horses on a lead rope while children are riding them. And, you know, we have volunteers who come and try to help us with other tasks that need to be done. And then we have the mentors, and there's usually about 8 of those a year. And they don't have to be horse people. So we'll either teach them about horses, or if they are horse people, there is Hugo, we may have to teach them more about kids. So.
Absolutely. So I'm not sure. So please feel free to throw in any questions you have there. One question that I have too, as we're kind of wrapping up here on it. How can people learn more about horse sensibility or therapeutic riding, or how can they get involved either with horse sensibility or other therapeutic riding programs, either in Massachusetts or Ohio? Is there different overseeing bodies of that?
Yeah, so of course, we have our own website, horsesensibility.org, but there is a network called the Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship, which is called PATH, and their website is PATHINTL for pathinternational.org. And on their site, you can say, find a center and say what state you're in, and I'll show you. Because there are therapeutic riding centers, not just all over the country, but there are all over the world.
Mhm.
Not everyone would necessarily be a member, but that's the best place to go to find a center like ours.
Absolutely. And I know you mentioned their stuff on your website as well, and things there too. So absolutely. So comment just came in on it. Such amazing facilities and wonderful work that you do. Thank you, Polly and Mike, for sharing with us, which I agree. It was amazing to get a tour of everything, to meet these horses, to see all the great work that you're doing with all these kids, and everything there is phenomenal. So thank you so much for taking the time to share the tour with us.
You're very welcome.
And go ahead.
I will continue my retirement here.
I think that's the best part, though. I mean, that's at least what I hope to do at one day too, is the retirement there's a stigma around it almost, where it's you retire and that's kind of it, but if you have a passion, if you have interests, as we're seeing here with horse sensibility, pursue it. It doesn't have to be retirement. I mean, do you want to speak on that from firsthand experience on your part?
Well, one thing I can say, because this really wasn't what I was doing before, it was kind of a crazy idea to get into this area, and I was really quite new to it. And instead of going to work at another center, I decided, why not just start my own? And we had to build the barn, find the kids, find instructors. We, because we put a priority on welcoming children from families who otherwise couldn't afford to send their kids here. We do a lot of scholarships, we do a lot of fundraising. We work with some of the state agencies who will underwrite the cost of riding for some of these kids. It was pretty crazy to decide to do this, but one thing about it is, whereas before, the kind of work I was doing, I knew it kind of made a difference, but I never saw it actually making a difference. Here, when I get busy or stressed or whatever, my office also looks out into the indoor arena. And all I have to do is turn my eyes away from the computer to remember why I'm doing it. Because you see it right on the kids' faces. And it's very rewarding and fulfilling. You may not be affecting, the whole world, but you know that you're affecting a small part of it.
Yeah, so someone commented, can you please share your website and any opportunities individuals may have to donate to support your efforts? Is there something on your website for that?
Yeah.
So just here, I can throw it in the chat here 1 second.
There's a button and there's also a page that talks about different ways to support the organization.
Yeah, so here, let me throw it in the chat for everyone to have access to. So that is the website for those of you who are viewing this and not have access to the chat. The website is horsesenseability.org. So horse and then sense, SENSE, ability, ABILITY.org. For those interested in learning more, you can visit there. Fantastic website too, by the way. It details all the programs, the about page, everything there, and path as well, and everything. So
all of our animals on the website. So I only showed you a few of our horses. So if you want to know more about them, you can go to the website. At the bottom of the About Us page, you'll see a slideshow of the different animals that are here.
Perfect. Yeah, because the animals were fantastic to meet, very well behaved too. I think that was the best part about it. They're very calm too throughout the whole thing, which when working with.
How did you potty train a horse? You said you house trained it, the pony.
That was the thing I was most nervous about, because Hugo and I are registered with the national organization called Pet Partners. They're the only organization that actually certifies ponies or horses. They also do 8 other species as therapy animals. And I was very worried about it. So to be honest, I wouldn't say I cheated, but Hugo seemed to get that concept by himself pretty much. And they do the evaluation inside in a carpeted room. So I think you get immediately dismissed if the animal poops in the room.
I would imagine.
He seemed to get it, and that was good, because there are ways to do it, but it's kind of like dieting. You don't want them to tell them they should never do it. It's just teaching them they shouldn't do it. So
I can't. I mean, it's hard enough with a dog that's in your house, and you can pick up a dog up and carry it outside. A horse, it's got to be a whole different concept. As soon as you said that, I thought, is she kidding?
You do reward the behavior you want, and you don't punish the behavior you don't want. But as long as you keep rewarding what's desired, they learn it.
That's really neat. Do you ever put a saddle on Hugo, or no? Does anybody ride him?
He could be saddled, and we could put like a 2-3-year-old on, but we don't. He has his job. He's really good at it. And we don't feel any need for him to have to do anything else. Yeah. He'll play soccer with the kids. He'll do all kinds of things. But we also don't take, except for physical therapy, we don't take kids under the age of 4. And most of them would already be too big for him.
Yeah, because he's tiny. Cool.
Well, thank you, Polly. Here, I'm just going to quickly share my screen here for upcoming. That screen. Yep. So some upcoming Kendal at Home programs that we have up here. Up next Friday, August 12th, at 11 a.m. We have a coffee hour. It's going to be this day in presidential history, featuring all events that happened in August. That's going to be with Jerry Deal Cusack. She's a retired librarian who really is focused a lot on presidential history and taken a strong passion towards that, speaking across the state of Ohio on topics of that, really focalizing on Eleanor Roosevelt, but presidential history in general. Then on Wednesday, August 10th at 6 p.m. is Make a Plan with Kendal at Home. It's a virtual informational seminar. Any friends, family that you want to invite, more than welcome to invite them to learn more about Kendal at Home, why they like Kendal at Home, what they can get out of it there. And then on Friday, August 19th at 11 a.m., it's going to be our Healthy Aging Matters series. And this session is going to be on mindful eating. So think of all those times where you sit down with a bowl of chips and just like all of a sudden the bowl is gone and all the chips are gone. That would be mindless eating. This is going to be focusing on mindful eating, taking a more strong approach to really thinking about what you're eating and focusing on the textures and things like that. So that's going to be with nutritionist Caitlin Fortson. She's going to be walking through that practice with us, kind of teaching how that goes. As always, anyone is welcome to these events, friends, family members, loved ones, neighbors, anyone you think might benefit from these sessions, please feel free to invite them. And as always, we do thank the Friends Foundation for the Aging for their grant in supporting our efforts here with programming for the greater community. But without further ado, Polly, thank you so much for taking the time today to speak with us. It was a pleasure seeing the tour, learning more about horse sensibility and meeting all the animals too. So thank you very much. And thank you to Mike as well too for being the cameraman. I know he said that his arm was tiring a little bit, and I can relate to that entirely. So thank you both for taking the time today to do this. You might be muted, Polly. I'm not sure, but
you're very welcome. And if you're ever in Massachusetts, come visit.
Absolutely. And what's the town again, in case anyone's curious?
It's in Sherborne, Sherborn. We're about maybe 20 or so miles west of Boston. So people around here do go into Boston to work.
Okay.
We're just lucky to be here down on the farm.
Very, very awesome. That's amazing. So again, thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us today on this second act series. And we hope that you can join us for next month's second act series, as well as these future events coming up. So thank you.